All right, let's talk about this week's case study. So it was episode 7, I believe. And there was quite a lot, I'm not gonna lie. Some interesting stuff. But some things that I for sure want to talk about mainly is Fred's wife. There's some things that I just thought were kind of interesting. So after Fred's arrest, they interviewed the wife and then interrogated her. And she was saying a lot about him. Things like how he was a Navy SEAL apparently, or things like he had anger issues and stuff like that, which I'm gonna get into more later. And he had almost these like manic's not the right word, but these sort of blackout episodes, which I thought was very, very interesting. But we're gonna get into that in a second. But something I thought was just also interesting was apparently that matchbook that had the thumbprint on it, the bloody thumbprint, was not actually a thumbprint. It was something else on his hand, but they all came back negative. So I don't know if it was someone else or what was going on there. I thought that was interesting though. Another thing is it's in my notes. Shelly's roommate, they went to Colorado and they interviewed her. And they had the card that allegedly said something. I can't remember exactly what it was. It was mentioned in a few episodes back. But it talked about how someone sent a card and it kind of had some threatening words. But when they gave her the card, it didn't say any of that. And she's like, that's not how I remember it. And then she was going in, well, maybe it was because I was scared and I needed an excuse to try to go back home. And maybe that, and then she was like, well, now that I think about it, maybe it didn't have, which I just thought was kind of interesting. I don't know if necessarily she was lying or something like that, but maybe she kind of had like a sort of, she had so much fear and anxiety, which I would too, if I'm gonna be honest, bubbling inside of her. Her mind kind of created an excuse almost to try to go back home, and that's what became her memory, because the mind can do that, which is interesting. So I think that's kind of what happened. I don't think she was necessarily like lying, but more of she was under so much stress and anxiety. I mean, her friend got murdered. That's terrible. I would be too if my best friend got murdered. And so she was just, her mind kind of created an excuse to try to leave. Because I think she said she was having money problems. She didn't really have the money. Things like that. But now for the main thing I want to talk about, which is Fred. This is where I thought was most interesting, where most of my notes are from. So, Fred was an alleged Navy SEAL. More on that in a little bit. So he was an alleged Navy SEAL. He kind of had these anger issues. They brought his wife, and I think they've said they've been married for like 35 years, I believe it was. But apparently he was a Navy SEAL. He was in the military, all this stuff. And the wife said, well, he was under so much pressure, in the SEALs, that they condition you, which is 100% true. When you become in the military, you become a weapon, especially if you've killed someone in the military. And he was in the military during Vietnam. That's even worse. People that were in Vietnam, like, they would go back home, and I can't remember the exact word for it, but they would come back home and they wouldn't be the same. They weren't able to socialize. They weren't able to feel like they fit in with society because of so much mental agony and the pain of killing someone on a battlefield, seeing your own friend or soldier dead. Like, so him being a Nam, like, that's gonna give him some PTSD. That's gonna give him sort of anxieties and stuff like that, which is terrible. But he would have these blackout episodes, and there's a story about, the story was kind of confusing, at least to me, that his wife was like upstairs, I think cooking or something like that, and then she put their daughter somewhere, and she was like flailing her arms and crying, and Fred came stomping up the stairs and put both his hands or his fists through the walls, and then was like, "Why would you do that?" Blah blah blah, and then all of a sudden he just kind of snapped back. He just kind of snapped back into reality. So, and like nothing ever happened. And I don't know if that's fully true. That's just me because I'm going to say in a little bit. But apparently he had these frequent episodes of just anger, which if he was in the military and he was in Vietnam and he was a Navy SEAL, he wasn't lying, makes sense. But the only thing is, the person that's doing the show, I forget their name, said they called someone, and he was never a registered SEAL. He was in the military during Vietnam. I can't remember what his exact job was, but I don't think it was like an artilleryman or a Navy SEAL or I forget the actual term for like a grunt, like someone who's on the front lines. I don't think it was that at all. So, and I'm gonna quote, almost an exact quote that what the episode said was, if he could keep a lie this long, who's to say he can't lie about him not doing a murder? And it all kind of goes back to Fred and stuff like that, and him, in my opinion, doing it 100%. That's just me though. Another thing I thought was interesting as well is a little side note, but his wife was a dispatcher up until I think he got arrested and convicted for the murder, I believe. But that was just interesting to me. But this is a crazy episode, lots of information. Excited to see what's coming next. But yeah, thank you.